Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are at. As you will notice, we are no longer doing Thursday night lives, technically Friday morning lives. We're now doing Saturday night, technically Sunday morning lives. Aaron and our family schedules looks like going forward, at least for now, every other Saturday night is what our schedule will be. And of course, we'll still do Sunday night as well. We might throw in an occasional Thursday night following Thursday night football. We'll see. But anyway, I expect the guys to join us here in a second. See, Robert is with us, and he says, just be nervous about the game. Okay. And that is a ode to what I said last week about it seems like whenever I'm not nervous for a game, we end up losing that game. And when I am, sometimes we still lose, but it seems like whenever I'm not nervous for a game, we lose it. I'll just say this, Robert. I was nervous because knowing that it made me nervous, right? But I also saw this game as kind of even a week ago, I saw this as the type of game where Chiefs fans expected that we were going to go in and blow out the Colts like 48-0. Uh, because as Chiefs fans, this is kind of our reasoning, right? It's like if the Jags with Trevor Lawrence and, in our estimation, inferior weapons can hold the Colts and beat them 24-0, we should be able to do even better than that. And whatever the case is, it just seems like our coaching staff never lives up to anywhere close to those kind of expectations. So, it is what it is. Um, I think Andy came out and said that he has to do better, but you know what? He says that after every loss. So it's kind of lost some of its meaning. Uh, by the way, if you're joining us, make sure you hit the like, hit the bell for notifications, and make sure you subscribe. I am wearing my black Patrick Mahomes jersey from Jaden's Jerseys. You can find them on TikTok and Instagram, and we have the link in the description for that. Let them know that we sent you, so he gives you a Chiefs Kingdom friendly discount. Still waiting on Gooch and Aaron to join us tonight. And so we'll talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. I have some Chiefs related stuff that I can start sharing and we can start talking about. So yeah, we'll just kind of see where we go. If I have to, I can bring that stuff in, and we can go from there and until the guys can join us here. So Robert says we need to be successful and sustained on the run through 4 quarters. Yeah, the interesting thing here, Robert, and let me see if I can find my folder here because the run is one of the things that I had for us to talk about. And it seems for whatever reason, something is amiss there. So, I don't know even that we can. I don't know. I don't know who's to blame for it, but something is clearly um, something is clearly amiss here. I got this up here. Let's see if I can do this. I gotta be able to do it so I can make fun of Gooch for being the one who is technologically inclined. So let's see here. got a little bit to do here, but anyway, yeah, it's not. There's more to it than what meets the eye here. Let's see if I can get this on here. And oh, come on. Okay. Well, I'm probably not. Doesn't look like I'm gonna be able to share anything tonight because this is dumb. But anyway, I had a one of the graphics I was going to show here is it's titled "Offensive Efficiency on Designed Runs and Dropbacks," and so it looks through 2022 the games that we played so far. It's designed run and drop back EPA per play percentiles. So you have on the bottom, you have designed run efficiency, and the Chiefs are around the 25th percentile on their designed run efficiency. And then the drop back, so you're passing, the drop back efficiency is somewhere around 90%. So we are doing infinitely better um, on passes than we are on runs. Uh, and you know, part of the reason, and I think Seth Kaiser, you know, has talked about this before, but part of the reason for that is, you know, on a pass play, you don't need everything to be perfect, um, like you kind of almost do for a run. Like on a run, if one offensive lineman gets beat, it's really hard for the play to have success. You know, and even if none of them get beat, you know, it's still hard. And sometimes our running backs make that harder, but it's still hard to have success. While, you know, even if on a pass blocking play, an offensive lineman, you know, makes a mistake, it's easier to still have success on that play, right? You know, if we think of when Pat has to break the pocket and he starts scrambling. We think about all these plays, right, where he's extended the play with his feet and he's able to, you know, extend it and make a throw and, you know, get a 15, 20, 30-yard gain out of what should have been a loss. Well, it's not impossible to do that on a run, but it's way harder. So uh, the reality is, yes, we do. We need to be able to do a better job at running, um, and we have to, you know, we do have to sustain trying through all four quarters. And you know, part of that is it's going to take a while. We didn't get a lot of run blocking reps um, in preseason, and even with, you know, OTAs, when Orlando Brown is gone, there was a lot of valuable reps that were, you know, missed as a complete unit. So yeah, I had some great graphics here tonight, so it's a bummer that it doesn't look like I can show them to you without restarting my browser. So that's unfortunate, but yeah, I guess we'll have them for tomorrow night if we have to. Otherwise, I can just record a video and get it out there and get some of these fun things for us. So, with that said, the floor is yours. Otherwise, I'll keep going here. I won't be able to do my screen shares like I was hoping to, but yeah. Robert says, did not see the final 53. What changes from last week? Did Rojo get called up? So, uh, Rojo has been on the 53-man roster. What he hasn't been is active on game day. So, you have a 53-man roster, and I want to say 48. I don't think they've changed it. I want to say 48 are able to be active and suit up for the game. So he hasn't been one of the guys yet. Um, let's see. Yeah, I think it's still 48 for game day active roster. Um, and so we won't know if he is one of those 48 until close to kickoff time is when they designate those. So we'll know then. But there's 5 guys who won't be, right. We assume that they elevated Elijah Lee. Uh, if you missed it, they cut him, and then they re-signed him to the practice squad. Some people were confused about that, but basically they wanted that roster spot, and they elevated Najee Johnson to the 53-man roster. So they cut Elijah Lee. He went to Kansas State. They knew, that he would be willing to help them with their roster gymnastics here. So they cut him. They re-sign him to the practice squad, because he's a veteran, and so he can pick. He doesn't have to go through waivers like the young guys do, and so it's all up to him basically. And so it's an easy decision for him to continually come back home. So he rejoined the practice squad, and then they elevated him for this game anyway. So it seems like it's a given that Elijah Lee will be one of those 48. Same with Najee. Well, not necessarily Najee, but Elijah, and then the place kicker that they brought in, Matthew Wright. And so Harrison Butker's been ruled out. They signed Matthew Wright to the practice squad. They elevated him for this game. They've elevated Elijah Lee. You only get so many elevations before you either have to stick on the 53 or get cut or go through waivers, depending on where you are there. And so I think it's the third time that you're elevated, they have to make a decision there. So the assumption is that Elijah Lee is going to be one of those 48. Matthew Wright will be one of those 48. It doesn't necessarily have to be that Najee Johnson is. It could have been that, with a bunch of cornerback injuries in the NFL right now, that they put him on the 53 to protect him from another team signing him to their 53-man roster. So he could be on the 53 now and end up one of those 5 guys who isn't going to be on there. We know Harrison Butker won't be. He's been ruled out. And so, he's on the 53. He's been ruled out. Mike Dana's been ruled out. So those 2 guys we know for sure. So that leaves 3 spots remaining for guys who won't be on the 48 game day roster. It could be Rojo. That's the way it's been the first 3 weeks. I know there's been a lot of talk and anticipation that Rojo is going to get a chance to play against his old team. So I personally would expect that we see him. And I know I've probably taken about 4 or 5 minutes to get to that part of the answer, but my expectation is that we should see him. And one of the graphics, man, this irritates me because I had some good stuff for you guys, and I'll have to throw it up tomorrow or something. But one of the graphics that I had here was rushing yards over expected per carry. And it's measured against rushing yards over expected success rate. So basically, rushing yards over expected per carry just tells us the average, right? The average over expected, average yards over expected per carry that a running back is getting, while rushing yards over expected success rate tells what percentage of your carries you're actually getting more yards than what is expected, right? So one of them, so basically with rushing yards over expected per carry, if you have if you have like one big run, say CEH gets like one big 30-yard run, and he was only expected to get 5 yards, well, that's 25 yards over expected, and so that gets added on to his per carry average there, and it bumps it up. Meanwhile, you have a guy like, and I'm just throwing things out here, but you have a guy like McKinnon who gets rushing yards over expected 30% of the time compared to, say, 20% of the time for CEH. And so, in that case, 10% of the carries, more of the carries, McKinnon will get you more than what's expected. And so it's a different way to look at it. And in this particular stat, if you want to call it a stat, but in this particular one, CEH actually has a rushing yards over expected per carry of 1, but his success rate is somewhere around 22%. So about 22% of the time, a little over 1 out of every 5 carries does he get more yards than what's expected from him. Meanwhile, McKinnon actually has a rushing yard over expected per carry of -1. So he's not getting, if you look at the whole, he's not getting what's expected. But his success rate, and this is the interesting thing, is around 26, 27%, close to maybe 28%. So he's actually getting more yards than expected more often than CEH. But, CEH had a couple big runs the McKinnon hasn't had that's kind of aided that per carry. Meanwhile, Isaiah Pacheco is doing better than both of them on both ends of this. He is averaging over 1 yard over expected per carry, and he has a success rate around 45%. So almost half of his carries, he's getting more yards than what's expected, and he's averaging around a yard over expected per carry. So it's an interesting little one, and maybe we should just do a bigger video on that one. I see Dan's question. Hey, Dan. Oh, I saw your question. I don't know where it went, Dan. I don't know if you're still with us, but yeah, you're allowed to come on and give your 2 cents for Sunday's game. I'm still waiting on Gooch and Aaron here. So yeah, I mean, by all means, you can jump on, talk about whatever you want to, Dan. So, and guys, make sure you check out Dan's channels. Dan Talks Football. Dan Bets Football. Bets the NFL. Damn, I got to remember these. And then I don't even know your history one. I got to get these memorized. I'm embarrassed here. So, but Dan's got a lot of good stuff for you guys. And so make sure you check out all of his content. So yeah, if you're still with us, Dan, you want to jump on and talk about that, you're more than welcome to. So in the meantime, Robert says, would love to see Rojo and Danny Shelton. Yeah, if they run Fournette, it would be nice, if he's still at 260 or whatever he was to begin the season. It would be nice to have Danny Shelton at 340 there, to clog some of that up for sure. And yeah, again, I kind of gave those numbers, and it's interesting the kind of season that we have from our running backs here. Dan's here, so I'm going to throw him on here really quick. From our running backs here. Dan's here, so I'm going to throw him on here really quick. From our running backs here. Dan's here, so I'm going to throw him on. Oh, it's on a loop. Our running backs here. Dan's here, so I'm going to throw. Here, I'll mute you for a second until you get that figured out. That little echo thing. Uh-oh. Can't hear you, Dan. You're unmuted now, but I can't hear you.
How do I sound?
Oh, perfect.
You can't hear me?
You're
muted now. Okay, am I good to go now?
How do I sound? Oh, perfect. Oh, we got some echo.
Okay, hold on here. I'm going to mute the YouTube here. I think we're good now, so I apologize.
All right, sounds good. You're fine.
I can't hear you though.
Oh.
Okay. So I think we're still having technical difficulties, it looks like. I can't hear you now. So,
Okay.
But hey, let me know what's going on, because I was hearing you fine, now I can't. What's going on, because I was hearing you fine, now I can't. What's going on, because I was hearing you fine, now I can't.
Yeah, we're gonna get stuck in an echo loop here, so let me just do this here really quick if I can. Okay. Huh, that's weird. Oh, deleted the history one.
I was on YouTube. I was listening to sound on YouTube, so I was like double dipping. But I think everything should be good now.
Okay.
Hopefully.
Test.
But I cannot hear you.
All right. Well, I'm going to throw this up really quick here. Why is it not letting me chat?
Well, I muted myself on YouTube, but I can't hear anything on this Melon app thing. I can talk about whatever I want. Can you give me like a thumbs up, because I hear nothing from you. Okay, so good to go. Okay, all right. For whatever reason, I can't hear anything that you're saying. So, but I wanted to talk. I have a series. I have two YouTube channels. One where I make bets and I play some, and then one where I just go live. The betting video I'm in the process of doing, so I can't come on long, but I did want to talk about this. Me and Denver Gator talked about this, and what it is that he lived in Florida during a hurricane. I don't know if you guys talked about this or not, but he brought up everything that you go through when a hurricane occurs, and it's just an absolute nightmare. And he kind of went into detail. I have to do some touch-ups on the video, so I haven't released it yet. So you guys are getting an in-depth feeling from somebody who spent a lot of time in Florida. Normally, the Chiefs going down to Tampa Bay at the beginning of the season, I looked at the schedule. I penciled this as a loss. I figured we'd walk through the first three games. I still think that we should have beat the Colts easily. There's 101 things we can complain about, but ultimately I expected 3-0, and I thought this would be a loss. Normal circumstances, I'd almost pick Kansas City anyway. You have the offensive line problems that Tampa Bay has. You talked about that in depth. That's something brilliant on your part that you talked about when you have a 107-year-old quarterback and you're on your, third center and third guard. By the way, their left tackle's questionable. I fully expect him to play. And Brady hasn't looked right. The offense hasn't looked right. So just under normal circumstances. But the thing is that even though it's in Tampa Bay, the Chiefs actually have a quote unquote home field advantage because of everything that's going on with the hurricane. You have to relocate the team's practices, where Kansas City didn't have to do any of that. You have stores out of supplies, a lot of things. Denver Gator brings all of this up in a video that I'm going to release soon. So I wanted to give you Chiefs fans knowledge that even though I'm Dan Betts NFL here. More and more people are betting towards Tampa Bay, but I'm leaning the other way, and I'm really looking forward to the Chiefs. And I'm kind of expecting a Chiefs victory, even though earlier in the season I was looking at this as a loss for the Chiefs. So that's my 2 cents. I kind of wanted to share that with you guys. And then I'm going to turn back on the sound on YouTube where I can hear keys. If it turns out to be an echo thing, I'll play around. But that's my 2 cents, and I wanted to share that with you guys. That's my 2 cents, and I wanted to share that with you guys. That's my 2.
All right, so guys, make sure you go over to Dan's channel, Dan Betts NFL, to watch that video, and you can see what all they talk about, how a hurricane affects a team when it happens there. So Yeah, I am sure that that will be great stuff. So, um, Robert here, really quick. Robert talks about Niang here. Her Niang is doing well. Maybe a chance to get him
Keith,
back.
give me 1 second. I
Okay.
think I know how to fix this so I can actually hear you.
Maybe a chance to get him back before the end of the season. Yeah, I don't know what it's going to be like. Before the season started, um, I heard Matt Derrick, I believe it's Matt Derrick, talk about um, this particular injury and how uh, usually when players come back from it, it take not only it does it take a while, but usually the career length afterwards is only a couple of years. And so, if that's the case, I'm not sure how much more we can really look to get out of Niang. And at this point, he really is looking injury prone. So, with that lower half of his body. So I I'll be pleasantly surprised if we get anything good out of him. I'll say it that way. I'm not going to root against him. I will root for him to come back better than ever, and to prove those numbers wrong. People do it, every day. We saw the amazing recovery that Adrian Peterson had, how many years ago. So it's not like it's impossible, and medicine keeps getting better. The technology keeps getting better. But uh, for me, it's one of those things where anything we get out of Niang moving forward is just going to be like free. It's house money. That's my take on it. Dan, you want to add anything to Niang?
Yeah, I'm glad I can hear you now. This whole time I heard absolutely nothing, so I forgot that some.
You must have had my wife's ears on. No, okay.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. Anything we get on Ning is bonus. I remember when he was drafted, I had really high hopes for him, and I can't say this with all definite, honesty and everything, but I still think that when he elected to sit out of the 2020 season, he was the only Chiefs draft pick that did that. He would have started in the Super Bowl, probably started at left tackle. I think the organization has been kind of soured on him, and I kind of think that was the reason why they tried using Kennard out of position during preseason. Was that I think they're going to just kind of move on from Ning. So anything you get out of him is just bonus money at this point. So no, I agree with you. I think that even when healthy, he's not guaranteed a starting spot. I think that anything you get out of him, anything at all, is just kind of a bonus. So
Yeah. Yeah, we'll go on here. Robert says, any thoughts on the screen game? I wish they use it enough to always impact the rush from Tampa Bay and keep them honest. And I'll let Dan answer for himself here. For me, though, my biggest wonder is, how much does the lack of athleticism from our tackles affect their willingness the last couple of years to really employ the screen game? Um, I believe Creed can do it. I believe Tooney can do it. I'm not 100% sure about Trey's ability to move out in space, but I don't think we have the tackles, either. Um, yeah, I'll let Dan throw in whatever he wants to say on this one.
no, yeah, you couldn't. I agree completely with you. And Orlando Brown, I really like him as a player, but the one thing about, I mean, just think about it from an optics standpoint. When you're 6'8", 350, I mean, do you really think that the best thing to do is take a guy of that size and say, hey, we're going to have you get to the outside and sprint 40 yards down the field and try to pick up a safety or a linebacker? That was something that Eric Fisher was pretty good at. He was a former tight end, but when you're that size, that's really not his strength. I do think the Chiefs will maybe maybe implemented a little more in the future. But I mean, with this offensive line, it's kind of funny because like this offensive line is a classic Marty Ball offensive line. You know, if we were doing the old school 3 yards and a cloud of dust offense, I mean, we got the perfect offensive line for it. But and I kind of agree with Keys here is that, you know, it's part of the offensive line limitations. I mean, they're one of the more bigger physical offensive lines and not as athletic as some of the offensive lines we've had in the past. So, but I wouldn't be surprised, though, if they do unleash the screen game a little more this week than they have in the past, just because the Tampa Bay pass rush is really, the Tampa Bay pass rush is a lot better than the Indianapolis pass rush. And
Right.
I don't think we had a ton of problems with the Colts pass rush. I think it was more just shooting ourselves in the foot. I'm still pissed about that. I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
All right. Yeah, I'm still pissed about that loss. I mean,
yeah, you know, this one's going to be an interesting one because you know, the Colts did some interesting things, and again, um, you know, without closing out on my browser now, I'm not able to share all the stuff I put together, but I had a couple of clips um, from some guys talking about some of the things that Gus Bradley's defense did to try to confuse our offensive line. You know, which is interesting, and I think it's a hard position to be in. And you know, I don't want to sound like I'm trying to knock Andy Reid here, but I think you can see there's a clear difference between Andy Reid and Bill Belichick when it comes to going from, you know, being a hunter to being the hunted, right? It feels to me like the last couple of years we're constantly playing catch up in the way that other teams are spending their off seasons to find a way to attack um, our whole team, right? And so instead of the Chiefs coaching staff being able to do the same and, you know, go out there and look at each team and try to find ways to exploit them, we're using a lot of our resources, in my opinion, and you know, this is all conjecture on my part, kind of from how I'm viewing it, and we're using a lot of our time and our resources to have to combat each team each week who has spent a good time, you know, of their off season putting a game plan together to beat us. And so, you know, we're the hunted. And when you're the hunted, you know, when you're on the defensive as an offense, you know, that's not a place you want to be. We have to get to the place where we are putting defenses on the defensive again, right? You don't want defenses to be on the offensive. You want them to be, you know, uncomfortable, which is what they're doing to us. They're finding the ways to do it. They're finding some creative things to do. With their defensive lines. Man, I really wish the video that I had for you guys, I could play it and you could see what I'm talking about here. But you know, there is some truth to the fact. You know, we have some players who are not holding up, you know, their ends on the offensive line. You know, we also have some gelling to do, especially in the run game and stuff. But at the same time, I think we forget that, you know, other teams are professionals too. And the margin between the best team and the worst team in the NFL, especially now that Urban Meyer isn't an NFL head coach, is smaller than what we like to believe it is. Right. I don't know how many times we've heard people talk about, oh, you know, this NFL team's so bad, you know, take the best college team, you know, Alabama or whatever. You know, for a lot of years, Alabama was the example. Alabama could beat that team. No, they couldn't. It would be a blowout from the NFL team, and there's a reason for that. And we do this with NFL teams. We do it with quarterbacks as well, you know, and that's not a knock against the elite quarterbacks, but you know, there's a slim margin of difference between most quarterbacks, and you know, part of that is arm strength, part of it is mental. It's different for each quarterback, but there's not this huge gap, you know, that we seem to make it. Now, a few of those guys are a lot better than the other ones, but for the most part, you know, we're talking here. So, you know, I'm getting off here on a tangent, but I just want to say that because you know, it it seems to be bigger, and I have to stop myself from this too, right? Like everything in my mind is, you know, our coaches are better, our players are smarter. You know, if a play doesn't go our way, it's because our players didn't execute. And when we get in a habit of thinking that every single play, we're not giving other teams, other defensive coordinators their due. Sometimes they've out executed us on their chalkboard, and part of that is because we're the hunted. So
Well, you have a really good point, and I've said this about the Buffalo Bills and Cincinnati Bengals. Part of the reason why I'm kind of in the minority when I tell people that, you know, it's a lot different when you're trying to catch up to the New England Patriots than when you're the team trying, you know, the team that's being hunted. I told people I thought Buffalo, somebody who I respect says Bills are the best team in the NFL. I'm like, I'm not so sure. And then, you know, of course they lost to, you know, Miami. And I said the same thing about Cincinnati Bengals. A lot of people thought that they would just, I know I didn't believe this. I'm not sure. I don't think you believe the Cincinnati Bengals hype either, Keys. I could be wrong on that, but you know, it's a lot different when you're a team trying to get there and you're chasing, and then, you know, everybody's got a game plan against you. I would love to know what your thoughts were, and anybody else who's in the chat. Me personally, I think that you played that Colts Chiefs game 10 times. Chiefs win 9. I don't think the Colts did anything overly special. I think Chiefs just shot themselves in the foot. And I mean, there's a handful of plays, but you have to realize one thing you said that made a lot of sense, and I think really needs to be emphasized, that the difference between top and bottom in the NFL is really not that much. The only winless team in the NFL is the Raiders, and you watch when the Chiefs play the Raiders, it might actually end up being a close game. I do think the Raiders win this week against Denver. I'm sorry, Denver Gator. But you know, he thinks just the opposite, of course. But
we have to root for this one. We want Denver to get a loss. So
no, you're right. I mean, you know, I think the Raiders are going to win this game. To be perfectly honest, I 100%. Well, I 100% agree with you. The difference between top and bottom in the NFL is not that much. I think the difference between Kansas City and the rest of the AFC West is pretty significant. I know I've watched all 3 of the AFC West teams. I've watched them play full games. I watched Denver play a couple full games. Denver looks like shit. You know, I'm sorry. I'm allowed to cuss. I'm allowed to cuss, right? I mean,
yeah.
you know.
Usually Gooch is with us. So
Okay, good. Yeah. Denver looks like absolute shit right now, and the Chargers. I mean, they're just having players fall off by the wayside, which is surprising to everybody else, you know, except for people that pay attention to the Chargers. And but you're 100% correct. There's not a big difference between top and the bottom team in the NFL. I am curious what you guys think. Is that we haven't talked since the Chiefs played the Colts, and I thought that the Colts didn't win the game. I just thought the Chiefs lost the game, and it was kind of interesting. I don't know if you have this in is one of the plays, but apparently somebody else brought up that there was some miscommunication between Hardman and Juju Smith-Schuster on the last play, the interception, and apparently it looked like Hardman made a mistake, and that's something because you know, Juju didn't play in preseason. You know, trying to get all those new people put together. Personally, I just think that Hardman was. A lot of people thought he would end up being like the number 2 guy, or maybe even the number 1 guy, and well, when it comes to receivers, I always consider wide receiver number 1, number 87, and you know, it's not an insult. You know, Chiefs use him as a wide receiver. You know, I mean, let's be honest. But I don't think Hardman's ever going to be the number 2 guy. I think after the season's over, he's gone, and you know, hopefully Sky Moore can learn. I think the only thing preventing him from getting more playing time is just learning this extremely complex offense. So. That's kind of my 2 cents, but I'd love to hear from you and what you think. Am I alone? Do I just think that the Chiefs just, you know, shit the bed, and or is there really problems? Me personally, I still think Chiefs are the best team in AFC, but they have a tough couple of weeks ahead of them.
Yeah, right. And I think we talked about this on our post game reaction, but because we try to keep it realistic here, but I try to do my best to be optimistic. And one of the things I said is, when you look at this game, and man, I had some great stuff. But when you look at this game, and there's no Willie Gay, there's no Mike Dana, Trent McDuffie's out. He had a great first game, and Trent McDuffie's out, and Dana was doing good, up until his injury, and Willie Gay is I don't want to say a game changer linebacker, but compared to the guys after him in the depth chart, I mean, he flies around the field. So you take these three guys being out, you put them in, for the game. But even if you don't, right? This one of the things I think I said on Twitter is you can fill in the blank with, and this is how it's not one person's fault. You can fill in the blank, and if this person or this unit doesn't do this, we win the game. And there's about 20 of those. So like one person can't get the blame for it, because there's 20 of those. If Chris Jones, just walks away, we win the game. If Harrison Butker isn't injured and he plays this game, we win it. If Matt Amendola, makes this, we win the game. If Andy Reid goes for it on fourth down here or doesn't go for it here, do the fake field goal, we probably win the game. And there's a lot of these moments. If Travis Kelce doesn't drop the touchdown in the end zone, we win the game. If the refs throw the flag on the defensive pass interference committed against Kelce on the other time in the end zone, where we had like 3rd and 2, and then we kicked the field goal, right there from the goal line, instead of having 1st and goal at the 1. Listen, I don't care how bad our run game is. We already made one of those in. You give us a 1st and goal again, instead of getting the 3, we're likely getting at least 6. I can't say 7 because Matt Amendola was kicking. So, but there's 3 points right there. And at the very least, you're talking about a tie at the end of the game. And then you're talking about the very last play of the game. It isn't a deep shot. I think that play was like 20, 25 yards there. And I know the play you're talking about. And Seth Kaiser was the person I saw who said he thought it was supposed to be a pick. Hardman was supposed to set up a pick for Juju, and it kind of threw Juju there and messed up the whole route. And but if it's tied at that point, you're not running that play. You're almost in field goal range. By the way, CBS had us already in field goal range. When they showed the line, I looked at my wife and I said, yeah, that's for Harrison Butker. It's not for Matt Amendola. So, get it together, CBS. What a stupid graphic. Matt Amendola is not kicking a field goal from the 40-yard line. You know what I mean? Maybe Matthew Wright will. That was part of my collection here. I don't know how much you guys, know about him, and don't mean to go all ADHD here on my answer, but Matt Amendola actually played with the Jags, and he is responsible for ending a 20-game losing streak for the Jags by kicking 2 fourth-quarter field goals, including a 53-yard game winner in the NFL International Series game against the Dolphins in London. And so we have a guy who, that's kind of a big thing when you have a 20-game losing streak and you're able to kick 2 fourth-quarter field goals, including a 53-yarder to win the game. So right there, I feel a little bit more comfortable with Wright likely kicking for us tonight. So, but like I said, you take out this thing or that thing. If the refs call a penalty here that should have been called, right? The face mask against Mahomes. And I've heard some Colts fans say, well, Mahomes face masked him first. Okay, guess what? You throw the flag on Mahomes for face masking him. All right, go ahead and do that. But then you throw the flag on the defensive player for face masking him, and you have what was it, offensive holding? That was the original call. Even though it's 2 versus 1, as we found out a couple of years ago as Chiefs fans, the call's still offset, and you replay the down. The Chiefs are one of the best offenses in 3rd and 7 and longer. So there's a better chance. I'm not saying, it's a given, but there's a better chance of a better result there, especially when you know that the Colts probably threw out a pretty good play the first 3rd and 7. So now their second 3rd and 7 having to replay this down. What are they going to do here? But yeah, there's like 20 different things where you can throw it out. Well, if this didn't happen, or if this did happen, or whatever, we win the game. And so that's how it wasn't one person's fault. But for that reason, I'm with you. We basically there's so many things, right? If Sky Moore doesn't muff the punt at the beginning of the game, we likely win the game. We don't give up an easy 7 right there. It could have easily been the 48-0 that I think a lot of Chiefs fans were expecting if the Chiefs played anywhere close to their abilities. And so I'm gonna go with this. Robert, I'm gonna throw up Robert's comment here. Are you frustrated with Big Red saying his game plan has no plan B? Because I think this was a lot to do with it. I can't remember if it was Matt Derrick or someone was tweeting out the quotes from Andy, and one of the things he mentioned was, we were coming out and we had these longer developing plays, and Indianapolis was doing some things to disrupt that. And I replied to him, I said, wouldn't it make more sense, instead of having long developing plays and having to make those adjustments at halftime, Dan, wouldn't it make more sense with what you've seen the last year to have quick passing game to start out the game and to adjust the other way? As things are going your way, as you're building momentum, then you start throwing in some of these longer developing plays. Like, wouldn't that make more sense?
I'm not 100% sure, but I will say this to answer your question, Robert. No, not at all. I think that it's kind of funny as a human being. I'm naturally a glasses half empty type of person. I'm kind of looking at the negative things that, it's a flaw of mine. I'm not perfect. I was blessed with fantastic hair and movie star good looks. So, but I'm going to look at just the opposite. I'm going to look at the positives. Let's look at the positives for this. I think me and Keezy can agree on this. This loss was a fluke. There's like 20 different things we can comment on that happen that are just normal NFL plays. My number one problem was the Kelsey touchdown. Here's a guy who's going to be in the Hall of Fame. You can make an argument as one of the greatest, if not seriously, we can actually make an argument that Travis Kelce is the greatest tight end who ever played. How many tight ends have more than 3 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons? The answer is 1, and that's Kelce, and he's going on 7. Had 2 hands on the ball in the end zone. How often does he drop that? And so, I'm not even worried about the loss. Am I frustrated with Andy Reid? Not at all. Let's look at the positives. The defense looks really good. I think the defense looks fantastic, and we're missing Trent McDuffie. We're missing Willie Gay. We're missing Hannah. Our injury situation's not nearly as bad as Tampa Bay or Buffalo. Did you see? I don't know if you saw the injury list of Buffalo, and then of course, if you're talking about top AFC teams, you have to talk about the Dolphins and Tua. I have to eat some crow because on my show Friday, I said I had no problems with what the Dolphins did, and it comes out today that they did make several mistakes. So I have to eat some crow when I go live. But if you look at other NFL teams in the AFC, is there a team right now that you're really putting above Kansas City? Is there a team that you're saying, oh yeah, we can beat the Chiefs? And there's not. This is just a fluke loss. I don't think anything of it. I'm not frustrated with Andy Reid. I'm not frustrated at all. I'm looking at this team and I'm like, this is still a team to beat. So what? They're not going to go undefeated. They're going to win 14 games instead of 15 or 14 instead of 13. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it's the best team in the AFC. To answer your question, Robert, short answer, no.
Yeah, and you know, again, and we would be remiss if we didn't talk about the defense, right? And you know, again, each team is going to throw out some of these things. So, you know, I talked about Colts did some creative things, you know, on the defensive line, and so we've already seen the Chargers did some as well. So, you know, one of the ways I look at it is eventually our offensive line by the end of the season, they're going to be battle tested. Like it's going to be really hard to throw some things at them they haven't seen by, you know, week 17, week 18, by the time we get into the playoffs. And, you know, the thing is even with them throwing out these things and even with the offensive line, you know, looking lost at times, you know, we're still right up there with, points per game and EPA per play and drive and stuff with all of these things happening. And I can't remember who it was now. And even if I did, I probably shouldn't say it on Twitter. You know, one of the smart analytical guys that I follow. And he was talking about, you know, he wasn't really surprised with our offense because he expected it to take a big step back without Tyreek Hill. And, you know, I don't disagree with that, but I'm like, you know, here are the numbers. So what are you talking about, you know, taking a step back? Every NFL offense has taken a step back because of how defenses are reacting. Who are they reacting to? Patrick Mahomes, right? It's like if, if we want to go there, you want to talk about, COVID or whatever, and you want to talk about shots and stuff. It's like Patrick Mahomes is like the worst thing, right? Defenses are trying to figure out how to kill Patrick Mahomes. If they can figure out how to kill Patrick Mahomes, they're able to kill every other quarterback because every other quarterback is below Patrick Mahomes as a quarterback, you know, give or take. If you want to throw, you know, another guy in there, but whatever, you know, is going to work, it's probably going to work for that other guy too. But to go back to what you said about the defense here, I want to throw out a few numbers here, and I had these ready. Chiefs run defense this season, 103 total yards against Arizona. Their lead back, James Conner, had 26 yards on 10 carries. 75 yards rushing total against the Chargers. Eckler had 39 yards on 14 carries. Against Indianapolis, 82 total yards. Jonathan Taylor, who was last year's leading rusher, if I'm not incorrect here after Derrick Henry got injured, but Jonathan Taylor, 71 yards on 21 carries. So, I mean, we've been tested, right? It's not like, the Bills defense last year when, you know, they were number one and they hadn't really played any good quarterbacks outside of Mahomes for most of the season. So it inflated their numbers. We're talking James Conner, you know, Austin Eckler, I think he was top 5 or 6 or so in rushing yards last year. And Jonathan Taylor, you know, so 26 yards, 39 yards, 71 yards, right between Connor and Taylor. They didn't even allow 100 yards between those two guys combined. So, you know, that's number one. The run defense definitely looks improved. The question could be how much of that is because, you know, teams are having to pass or feel like they have to pass, and that would be fair. But, you know, Taylor had 21 carries, so, you know, that's a good sample size there. This one came out as well. This is for week 3 only, but it's best and worst cornerback trios at perfectly covering plays. Perfectly covering plays, week 3, trios. So 3 cornerbacks, right, on the team. Number 5 on this list is Jalen Watson, L'Jarius Sneed, and Rashad Fenton. I have no reason to expect that when McDuffie comes back, if he replaces Rashad Fenton, that trio is going to be even better. If they can be top 5 with Rashad Fenton on there, and I'm not meaning any disrespect, you know, towards him, but he's shorter, he's slower, you know, he knows how to grab onto guys, and sometimes he gets caught and sometimes he doesn't. But you replace him with McDuffie, who even has a much better vertical than him and some more speed there. I think that trio of Snead and McDuffie and Watson is going to be great moving forward here. Which leads me to my third one here, and then I'll stop talking. And this one's from Bill Barnwell. Oldest teams by snap weighted average or age through the first 3 weeks, and the youngest. The Chiefs are the second youngest, tied with the Chicago Bears. New York Giants, or sorry, third youngest. Third youngest. The Detroit Lions are the first youngest at an average snap weighted age of 25.6 years old. The Cleveland Browns are second at 25.8, and the Chiefs and the Bears are tied at 26 years even. So we're producing this right now, and we're producing it offensively and defensively with the third youngest roster, not roster, but third youngest guys getting the snaps, right? That's what it's talking about, snap weighted age. So the guys who are actually getting the snap, not the guys on the roster, the guys who are actually playing. Third youngest. So
I mean, those are all good points. I would just, the number one thing that you talked about was Jonathan Taylor, and I had such a man crush on him coming out of Wisconsin. This was a guy, I do a lot of draft stuff, and I can't tell you how much I love this kid, and I really thought that he would have a big day. And I mean, he had 21 carries, 71 yards. He was basically a non-factor. I mean, think about it. I mean, look at the Colts' 2 touchdowns. It was one off a Chris Jones penalty, which I'm going to rant. I'll keep it short. But the NFL, one of the things the NFL's done this offseason is they've made a big effort to institute unsportsmanlike contact calls, and those have gone up. I watch the Detroit Lions, and for those of you who watch Key and Peele, you know that skit where it's at 3 pumps. You guys know what I'm talking about. Hopefully you do. Hopefully I'm not just making stuff up. Anyway, there was a 15-yard penalty against the Detroit Lions where it looks like he did 3 pumps, and he should have only done 2. He just did a little salsa dance, and he's done that like I think Jamal Williams. He's done that literally after every touchdown. He's literally done that 45 times in his career, 50, and this year, for the first time ever, he got 15-yard penalty for it. So the NFL is cracking down. But the main thing they were wanting to crack down on was defensive backs standing over receivers. So like after an incompletion, or they would stand over them kind of like a taunt. And so what the NFL did this offseason was say, hey, look, we're going to cut that out. And what they've done is they've thrown a lot of flags that probably wouldn't have been called in the past. I really think that another officiating crew, and definitely last year, Chris Jones doesn't get a 15-yard penalty. And then, Sky Moore, the one thing I will say is I'm not happy with Sky Moore returning punts and kicks. He didn't do it in college. Miracle Hardman did. I don't know why he's not back there returning punts and kicks. That's something I'm not. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. But the number one thing you pointed out was the Chiefs' rushing defense is phenomenal, and the defense overall looks really, really good. This offense is going to get better. Juju Smith-Schuster had some really nice plays, and I think really has all the tools to be a number one receiver in the NFL. Now, keep in mind, Kelsey's always going to be a Chiefs number one, wide receiver. You want to call him a tight end. I have no problems with that. I don't call him a tight end, but I'm in a lone minority. But the number one wide receiver on the Chiefs is going to be Juju Smith-Schuster sooner or later. And by the way, he didn't even practice. I don't even think he's 100% healthy. I might be wrong on that, but if you're worried about the Chiefs, please don't be. And like I said, before the season started, I counted this game as a loss. I thought that Tampa Bay would be something we wouldn't really overcome. Now with the hurricane, the Chiefs really don't have Tampa Bay really doesn't have a home field advantage. And the way they've played the first couple of weeks, I think Kansas City is the better team. And I'm actually thinking about putting some money down on the Chiefs Sunday. We're going to have to wait and see. So, but that was kind of my 3 cents. And I guys, I'm going to get off of here because I have a video that I was supposed to release a while back. My betting video. I actually had to go to Hollywood Casino and place the bets. I'm sorry, you guys don't live around here. So anyway, there's a problem with the app. And so I had to go and place some bets live at the casino. I actually took some footage of inside the casino. I think it'll be kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also have a clip of the error message and the conversation I have with Barstool. So for those of you live in Kansas that are new to sports betting and want to try it out, I strongly suggest you watch my video because there may be some problems that you may have to occur. By the way, you can always hit me up. I'm on social media with Keys. You can find me at Dan Talks Football on Twitter, or you can use Facebook. Or you can hit Keys up and Keys can hit me up. We actually text each other. So, but I'm going to get out of here. I just wanted to talk about the Chiefs, let you know that my prediction is I think they're going to win Sunday. So with that, I'm out of here. And thanks for having me on, Keys. I really appreciate it. And hopefully we can get back and do some more stuff here in the future.
Sounds good. Thanks for joining us, Dan.
Hey, thank you.
And just in time, Gooch is with us.
Yeah, I figured I'd get off there. No, I'll play Gooch, man. I'm sorry I can't stay on more. I have to do a video. But guys, hey, thank you very much for having me on. And don't forget, subscribe, thumbs up, and subscribe and share the Back Talk Brothers.
Thanks, Dan. Gooch, what's going on, man? Well, maybe Gooch is with us. Well, anyway, you guys, you heard Dan there. Make sure you go check out his video with Denver Gator, who, as you might be able to tell from his username there, is a Denver Broncos fan and a Florida Gators fan. But Denver is actually also a subscriber to this channel, so we're glad to have fans of other teams here, and one day we'll get to the point where we're talking about all 32 teams. Dan does that over at his channel, so make sure you go find him. He knows what he's talking about here, and see if we can get Gooch to.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Okay, because I was talking the last time. I was like, wait a minute, you can't hear me?
No, we couldn't hear you.
I'm here now. What's up, guys?
It's like what is it? Is it the Verizon? Was it the Verizon commercials? Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me now? We got a little busy in a few of our New York stores. There's a guy, some country singer named Luke Cohn or something. I don't know. Apparently he's a big deal in the country scene. He holding a 3-day concert. And of course all the drunk people need pizza. So I just
probably like Luke Owen, maybe.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
All the drunk people need pizza. Well, I mean, those things go together, right?
I guess so. I don't know. I didn't eat pizza when I drank because it would mess up my alcohol blood content.
Yeah, it's the amount of fat in there, it slows the absorption in your stomach, so once you get that fat in your stomach, everything else is slower to digest. So, but yeah, Robert says Raiders win will soften them up for us next week. Might. I don't know that we need it though. He also says
the Chargers.
Raiders are playing the Broncos today because we're into Sunday, right? I think it's today. They're playing the Raiders and Broncos are playing. So we're not rooting for the Raiders. We're rooting for the Broncos to lose and drop to 2-2, and that would put the Raiders at 1-3, I think. Something like that. And then if we beat the Bucks, that would put us in sole possession of first place. I had to laugh because Dan was talking about how terrible the Broncos are, right? And they're 2-1. And the picture that comes to my mind, Gooch, is who Pete Davidson is? Anybody out there who knows who Pete Davidson is? The Broncos, to me, are like the Pete Davidson of the NFL. Like, they're 2-1, right? Pete Davidson gets the ladies, but man, are they like as a team, they are ugly winning. And I'll just leave it at that.
That might have been the perfect analogy there, Keys.
Every once in a while, I have one of those come to me. I had a little time to think about it, though, so. So, Gooch, what do you think is the key to victory tonight against the Bucks? Or if you can.
First, is it a night game?
Yeah, 7:20 p.m.
Great. That's fantastic. I actually mean that. Because my boy Keys figured out a way to hook it up so I can watch it while everybody else is watching it also.
Legally, FCC, NFL, and anybody else who might hear this.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. You're right. I actually think the key to getting a win in this game is Patrick. I think he needs to stick to the fundamentals, keep an eye on his footwork, and I know there's probably a lot of people who are like, "Oh, the offensive line needs to play better. You know, defense needs to continue to play lights out like they have been, yada, yada, yada." I think the reality is that as you go back and look, and I've listened to other people too, and I went back after they said it and watched because I have the NFL
22.
Plus. Yeah, I can go back and watch, and then I have the NFL Plus thing, so I can go back and watch the whole game again. A lot of the stuff that they said is true. The fastest Mahomes got the ball out of his hands was the Arizona game. The last two games, it's been almost 3 seconds. So he's holding it not because he's looking for the big shot like he was with Tyreek. He's holding it, waiting on these guys to get separation. The problem is I think you hear people say they're not getting separation, but they are. It's coming at the start of the route. They don't have the long speed that Tyreek has. So Tyreek would be covered for the first 4 or 5 steps, and then he's gone. And these guys are quick in a phone booth, so they have the step quickly. And then these guys are catching up. So I think short passes, getting the ball out of his hands, making more decisive decisions when he's out there is going to be the key. He needs to go back to the Arizona game, 8 guys, 1 catch or 2 catches, spread the ball around, do his check downs. You know, the funny thing is we've been so spoiled by the long ball and Tyreek. The reality is, and for a lot of you guys there, if you're hardcore Chiefs fans like me, this is the toughest thing to say. But right now, what you need is Alex Smith. You need the guy who's going to take the drop-offs and the short passes across the middle and work them down the field. Mahomes can do that, but it's always against his better demons. You know what I'm saying? But for right now, until you prove that all the talk that we've been doing about how this offense is going to be unguardable and stuff like that, until you make them scared of you, you're going to have to put the work in. I mean, so. In my opinion, the key is Patrick. What do you think? I missed it. I'm sure you talked about it. I'm open to opinions. You know me.
Yeah, well, we haven't talked about the keys for the game yet, but you know, we did talk about the offensive line a little bit. We talked about some stuff here. You know, this may or may not add to the conversation. And by the way, let me see if I can find this one clip here. Maybe I can't, so I'll just do these really quick. But you know, one of the things I find interesting is according to Arjun Minion on Twitter, he had this tweet last month. Well, I guess now a little over a month ago now, end of August, the most efficient personnel groupings from last season. And 2 of the 5 on there were the Chiefs' different personnel groupings. They're 13 personnel and they're 21 personnel, right? So when the Chiefs had 3 tight ends out there, or they had 2 running backs and 1 tight end out there, those two personnel groupings last year were the 3rd and 4th highest, most efficient personnel groupings by expected points added per game. This year, the Chiefs have the 4th through the first 3 games, have the 4th best personnel group, and that's actually their 11 personnel. So having 3 receivers out there has been, and it's been not quite twice as much EPA per play as either of those 2 from last year, but almost as much. A more than a half a point expected per play there on 80 plays that they've ran so far out of 11 personnel, which is interesting because I'll go ahead and I'll give you the ones that are ahead of them because I'm sure people are curious. But the Falcons 21 personnel, and I'm sure that Cordarrelle Patterson really helps that one out. The Jags 12 personnel, the Dolphins 11 personnel, which with Tyreek and Jalen Waddle, a little bit speedier there. So they're about a half a point ahead of us there. And that's interesting because 3 out of the 5 worst are 11 personnel for the Panthers and 49ers and Texans. But anyway, it's just interesting looking at all of this and what's going on. And I had a quote here now. I think it was Eric Eager who was talking about. He went on Twitter and he flat out said that Eric Bieniemy is not calling the plays. He said that he looked into play caller uniqueness. They have all this data on play callers, and of course, Andy's been doing it so long that they have you can tell, right? Guys tells. So after all these years, so he said that he looked into the play caller uniqueness stuff, and Andy just has these lulls where he doesn't bring his A game to games, especially this time of year. Maybe that's where we get some of that conjecture that Andy just goes really vanilla at the beginning of the year, or goes vanilla, as they play certain opponents. And maybe part of that is, you're playing the Colts and you don't think you're going to have to bring out much more than vanilla. Right. And let's be honest, Gus Bradley is their defensive coordinator. When Gus Bradley was with the Raiders, right, last year, we hung 40 on the Raiders both times. The Raiders didn't have an answer for us. And guess what? Their defensive line was a lot better. No disrespect to the Colts defensive line, but Max Crosby is a stud, and let's see, both teams had Yannick Ngakoue, right? Yannick was with the Raiders last year, if I recall correctly, and with the Colts this year. So, there's that. But, the Colts don't have a player the caliber of Max Crosby, but they were able to do some creative stuff, and they weren't in, cover 3 like they were with the Raiders. The Raiders were one of the teams last year who played the Chiefs who showed the least amount of too high shells pre-snap last year. And it was like a ridiculously low amount. I want to say in the first game, like 20 maybe even lower than 20%. And so, I think Andy and Eric were just flat caught off guard that Gus Bradley didn't make, he didn't really seem to make much adjustment from game 1 to game 2 last year. And so I don't think that they were expecting him to really deviate for, playing them this year while he's with the Colts. And so I think that just threw them for a loop. But to go back to what you said, Gooch, and this is one of the things I talked about, and, I think it was Matt. I don't know if it was Matt Derrick or Nick Jacobs or somebody had tweeted out talking about Andy talking about his adjustments and, how I think it was Matt Derrick, but I could be wrong, talking about his own commentary about how we had, these slow developing plays, and my comment to that was, wouldn't it make more sense for us to come out the opposite, right? You come out with your quick passing game and you adjust the other way instead of playing the exact opposite for 2 quarters and then adjusting at halftime to the quick game. But that's just me. To me, it would make more sense to do that, but I'm sure they have their reasons for that, just like Tobe has his reasons for having his returners be really aggressive with their kicks and kick returns. And you know what? Sometimes it blows up in your face. But anyway, I'm sitting at home and we're talking about Hall of Fame coach and some pretty good other coaches. So. You want to respond to that? I'll give you a chance before I go on to my actual.
Sounds good. I also think that they need to everything you said about Andy and his tendencies are right. I really think, and this isn't going to be a popular take, but it is mine, and you know me. I think they need to do less with Kelsey right now. I think you have Fortson and he's healthy. You have Gray. Give Kelsey less snaps. Preserve that 30-something-year-old body for the playoffs when he's going to be the best player on the field, and he wouldn't have taken that many hits. I mean, it's time to start.
I'm breaking up there, Gooch. Well, we might get Gooch back here, so I'll just in the meantime, while we wait to hear Gooch again, I'll go ahead and throw out my keys to this game. And I think this is an interesting one because I think we look at Matt Ryan, and he was surprisingly mobile in this game, more mobile than I thought he would be. Who is not mobile? Tom Brady. As Dan alluded to earlier, and I talked about it when the injuries happened. Those injuries, especially losing his center right up the middle, that's the easiest way to affect Brady. You get that interior pressure, right? You get exterior pressure, you get it from the edges, and Brady can step up in the pocket, or he has, a split second more to get the ball out or to go down in the fetal position and just take the sack. But you get that pressure right up the middle and it affects him in a different way. So to me, that's one of the big keys here. I think we also have to press the receivers. We can't be doing what we did. We can't be doing what we did against the Chargers where, we had 3rd and 2 and we're just playing a soft zone 8 yards, off the line of scrimmage. We can't do that, So I think you press the receivers, you figure out those ways. You have Chris Jones there. You figure out ways to be creative and manipulate the A gaps. Maybe this is a good game to let Leo Chanel get his feet wet, do some of those things he did in college, and get that interior pressure. You get that interior pressure. You press the receivers there, and you just make Brady's day a living hell. And whatever he wants to do with Fournette, fine, whatever. So defensively, I think that's my game plan for this game. Offensively, I didn't really quite get to this place yet with Dan when we were talking, but teams like the Colts, teams like the Chargers, they've been creative with finding ways to confuse our offensive line or to manipulate our protection packages. So the Chiefs are going to have to take a long, hard look in the mirror there. And hopefully they've done that this last week, because it's evident. It's kind of like that thing back, was a couple of years ago when the Titans blocked a couple field goals or almost blocked one and then blocked one and won the game. He'd gotten close 2 or 3 times where it was a matter of we were using the same snap count or terminology. Tobe was being lazy, and other teams, the Titans had been watching the film and they realized it. And it was kind of a wake up call to Tobe. It might be a similar thing here with the offensive line and the protections. I think one of the biggest things is Todd Bowles is smart enough to where you're not going to, you have a combination of, and you could say the Chargers were similar, with Bosa and I forget the other guy they had there, but that Bucks D line, was good in the Super Bowl. They didn't really have to do anything cute. They didn't have to do anything to manipulate our offensive line, that matchup, because we had a bunch of backups starting. They didn't have to. They could just win on pure, power and speed and skill. They have that power, speed, and skill, but they also have a defensive coordinator, who can do some of these same things that the Chargers did, do some of these same things that the Colts did. So they really can potentially exploit the Chiefs' offensive line if we did not put in the work this week. Even then, it seems like it's not going to be easy to run against them. So, for that reason, I kind of have to agree with Gooch here. And Robert mentioned earlier, why don't we see some screens? We're going to have to see some things for them to counter the arrogance and the aggressiveness of the Buccaneers defense, because they haven't allowed very many points this season. I think it's easy to look at the Bucs offense against our defense and see our defense winning that matchup. Doesn't always work like it should, though. It's just, to me, it's going to be our offense and how we're able to move the ball against the Bucs defense. I think Shaq Barrett who said what he said. I think it was stupid of him to say that, because this offensive line is not even close to the offensive line they played. But at the same time, again, they can match those things where, the Colts had to be a little creative at times and pick their places to confuse our offensive line. At the end of the day, they were still bailed out by the refs at times. So, I think this matchup is going to be different in my opinion. So I'm with Gooch there. I'm with Robert as well. We have to find ways to use the Bucks' arrogance and their aggressiveness against them, their defensive arrogance and aggressiveness against them. And I already gave you what I think we need to do on defense. So, and special teams needs to have practiced this week. It sure looked like they were given the mini bye week off or something. So that's my keys to it. Robert says Furious George and Chanel crushing the pocket from A and B gaps. They actually did some creative stuff. I got to hand it to Spags, and I didn't get all the way through the all 22. I started early in the week, and then I got distracted with life and stuff, and so I didn't get all the way through it. But what I got through, I saw some creative stuff from Spags that I was for the most part impressed with. So we'll see what he has up his sleeve for this game, because if it's anything like what he did against the Colts, I feel like he's having some fun, Gooch. Whether it's the youth, whether Justin Reed is right, and these young guys are smarter, which seems crazy that they're smarter than the vets that we had. Whatever it is, it seems like Spags is able to do a bit more and is having a little bit more fun, and the creative juices are going. At least they were, this last week. So, there was a play where George was lined up at defensive end, if I recall correctly, and right before the Colts snapped the ball, he rotated inside, and Darius Harris came from the linebacker position and took George's position at the edge. So, what looked like a 4-3 ended up being a 5-2 on that. And because that happened, Justin Reed was blitzing, and he had a free shot to tackle Jonathan Taylor behind the line of scrimmage. And if it had been a pass play, he would have probably killed Matt Ryan. So some fun stuff that they did. So, but yeah, I would love to see Chanel get to blitz 1A gap and see Chris Jones attack the other one. And, maybe they throw some other stuff in off of that, but lots of fun stuff. So we'll see. Robert says, press if Fenton can stop, just stop grabbing. Well, the beauty of that is you can grab all you want the first 5 yards, right? So, teams did it against Travis for the last year now. Of course, they get away with it after 5 yards. But, that's the beauty of it. You can do it. You can grab them within those first 5 yards. So why not? Because if you slow them down just long enough, like, you got to be effective at it, but if you can slow them down just long enough, you're getting to Brady. And if you get to Brady, beautiful things are going to happen. So, that's my opinion on it. Gooch, I don't know if you saw this. I know I shared the tweet. I think Seth Kaiser shared this tweet also. It was one of the plays I was going to show here tonight, but it was Gooch is back.
Yeah, I was gonna talk about the what you're saying. I don't know, for some reason I keep losing my audio, but I don't think Spags is finding the creative juices. I think he finally has the speed that he wants to pull off all the crap that he wants. I think as creatures of the moment, we are quick to assume that Spags wanted these guys, but something that Chris Clark said on another podcast was they weren't there for defense. They were there for special teams, because no matter how much you hated Neiman or Dorian O'Daniel or even Sorensen, they were great special teams guys. And so maybe Spags couldn't really implement the defense he needed because we had spent all that time trying to do offense. And so we kind of left Spags with the this is what you got, make it work. Because this defense, the first 3 weeks, in my opinion, and not even in my opinion, they're ranked number 9 overall right now. In my opinion, is faster, smarter, and more probably outside of the fact that he still likes the long, big defensive ends. Um, all in all, better. Like I think he's finally got his dog so that he can release. And like you said, just right before the snap, Harrison and Karlaftis switching. You know what I'm saying? We didn't have anybody that could do that last year. And so I think it's going to be a fun ride. Anyway, go ahead. What were you? What did you have?
Yeah, I was just going to talk about. Yeah, I had a bunch of stuff I was going to share, but I can't do it without closing the browser apparently. So it's got to restart before I can do it. So I can't do it tonight. You know, if we do a post game reaction after the game, I'll be able to share some stuff then. But one of the things was it was a little video that Ted Nguyen, man, I don't know if I'm saying his name right, did, and Ted writes for The Athletic, and I think he also covers the Raiders, or I think he used to, I think some of the West Coast teams, and I think Seth Kaiser retweeted it, but it was a couple plays from the game, what the Colts were doing defensively, and I'm doing this from memory now. I wasn't planning on it. I was planning on actually showing the video, but it was basically once Mahomes identified the mic, it told the Colts, if I recall correctly, what side they were going to go on. And they had Ngakoue going wide around Orlando Brown over to that side. I think it was Ngakoue. And they had another Kwity Paye coming in to the middle from like that same, to both attack them from like the left and the middle, you know, intentionally trying to drive Mahomes, manipulate him to break the pocket and go out to the right. Well, the whole time they had a linebacker who was basically spying Mahomes. He was just, you know, he was kind of at Creed and Tooney, you know, but he wasn't engaging with them. He was, you know, he was a couple of yards away. He's basically just standing there watching Mahomes the whole time. And the moment the Mahomes starts to scramble and break the pocket, you know, he just makes a beeline to Mahomes. Like that was the whole intention, you know, and that's part of what I was talking about earlier is like, we are the hunted. And I feel like we're spending too much time. Andy and Eric are having to spend too much time being defensive on offense rather than putting the defense back on the defensive. And that, you know, this is again, you know, there were 2 plays, this play and another play in this tweet, but this is the one that I remember pretty much verbatim. And, you know, even with that, it still took 1,000 other things for the Colts to beat us. So I'm not saying at the end of the day, this one play was make or break, but when you can get enough of these plays, you know, and it's on 3rd down or whatever. By the way, this was the play where, and Ted was wrong because he said it caused an errant throw. Mahomes threw a bullet to Justin Watson, I think, right? This is the play where Justin dives. He basically throws a dart to him, and Justin Watson diving just doesn't catch it. But it was accurate as could be. You know, could it have been better if he hadn't had to, you know, have all that pressure on him and have the linebacker closing in on him? Yeah, probably. But still, you know, Mahomes can still do that. You can do what you want to do on defense. So that helps out. But, you know, the whole point is defenses are doing things like this. It's not all on the offensive line. When it is, and the defense is able to scheme it, you know, it kind of compounds a little bit. And when receivers aren't getting the same kind of separation, and Gooch kind of brought up that good point. They're not getting the same horizontal or vertical separation in the way that Tyreek did, but they're taller to where they can get the other kind of vertical, right? Like the height vertical. And that's something that we had been missing. And it's something that if you watch Herbert and Burrow, that was one of the things they did ad nauseum last year, right? How did Burrow, how was he getting his completions against us? He had the one big Jamar Chase slant or whatever that, he got a bunch of yak off of. But a lot of these were just throw it up and let Chase and Higgins and Boyd go up and outleap our defenders and catch it. And we've seen the Chargers do that how many years with Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, so I mean, it's a component we saw a little bit in preseason. We saw a lot of things teased, right? We saw Sky Moore in the backfield being teased in preseason. There's a lot of things we saw in preseason we haven't seen yet. And, part of that can come back to, is Andy purposely vanilla? I mean, my question, Gooch, would be, do we believe that? And if we do believe that, is this opening stretch of games that we play until the bye week, that's against all these playoff teams and teams that were above 500, how much can you afford to play fairly vanilla-ish against these teams? I don't know if I can unmute you, Gooch. You're muted though. Can you hear me, Gooch? I hear you. Oh, sounds like he's at work, so I'm gonna mute him back up here. But anyway, or maybe he's just partying because it's like 2:40 a.m. there. Gooch is having a party. But yeah, so I don't know.
Hang on, boys. I'll be right back with you. I'm not gone. I just had to vanish for a second.
Okay. I think this game is gonna. I don't want to call a game make or break, and when Gooch rejoins us, maybe he can give his thoughts on this. But this game really seems like it's going to be telling in a lot of ways as far as what I'm going to expect out of the coaching staff and the offense, and to a lesser extent the defense, moving forward here. While Gooch is away here really quick, because he did bring up, getting Sky Moore the ball more. And this was one of the things that I had for you guys was a graphic showing rookie receivers cumulative snaps. So this shows back to Andy's Eagles days. So it shows Deshaun Jackson, it shows Jeremy Maclin, McCole Hardman, and Sky Moore and Tyreek Hill. And so it shows, each week of their rookie season, right? So, and then it shows the amount of snaps, right? And, basically the most snaps, Deshaun Jackson and Jeremy Maclin, it looks like they got close to maybe 730 so snaps their rookie seasons. McCole Hardman got more than Tyreek Hill did, but a lot of that was because Tyreek got injured and McCole had to play. And so, they had to find a way to be a bit more creative with McCole early on. But if you look at Tyreek, right, because I think when we think about the receivers, we don't think about, if I said who should have got more rookie snaps, Tyreek Hill or McCole Hardman, I think basically everybody would say, well, obviously, Tyreek Hill deserved to get more rookie season snaps. The thing is here is if you look at Sky Moore's snaps so far, through these first 3 weeks of the season, they basically exactly follow Tyreek Hill's snaps, the trajectory, right, of this chart. Like the first 2 weeks, the first week actually, it looks like Sky Moore got more snaps. Now this says cumulative snaps, so I don't even know. I'd have to ask the person who made this chart if it includes special teams, and maybe that's why it's different. But if you look at this, barely more snaps than Hill in week 1, basically the same amount in week 2, and week 3. So the Colts game, there's a slight decrease in snaps off of what Tyreek had. Week 4 for Tyreek, you see, a little bit bigger jump. And it isn't even until week 8 that Tyreek Hill gets to 100 cumulative snaps for the season in his rookie season. He gets to 200 by week 11. So it takes him the first 8 weeks to get to 100 total snaps, right? So if we do the math here real quick, that is a little over 12 and a half, an average of 12 and a half snaps a week. Those first 8 weeks, I mean, obviously it shoots up because he starts out at a very small amount, but on average, it takes till week 8 to get to 100 snaps almost exactly. So you're talking about averaging 12 and a half snaps a week for those first 8 weeks. And then the following 4 weeks, so weeks 9, 10, 11, and 12, we see a jump up, nearly double that, right? Almost another 100 cumulative snaps. So he goes from like 12 and a half, and that basically doubles each week. And instead of 12 and a half for that next 4-week span, he's getting somewhere around 25 snaps a week on average there. So from there, he gets up to 300 snaps by week 13, right? He has a huge jump in week 12. He goes from 200 to, around 280 there from week 11 to week 12. So, he's basically starting and he's getting almost every snap, basically, looking at that chart. But then things tone down a little bit week 13. And that's when he hits the 300 snap mark. And so, Tyreek ends the season at week 17 with a little over 400 snaps played. But that's kind of the progression he took. It was a slow and steady progression. And really it was that week 11 to week 12 where there was a huge jump. And then from there, it's, more of a steady, slower incline of snaps. But if you look at it, like Tyreek had the least cumulative snaps over any of those 4 receivers, Jackson, Maclin, Hardman, and Tyreek there. And again, part of McColl's was because Tyreek was injured. So, week 1, McColl gets somewhere around 50 snaps. So he's at 100 snaps by week 2. He's at, and he's kind of getting that. That's kind of the pace he's following. By week 4, he has his 200 snaps. That took Tyreek till week 11. So was that skill? I don't know that there's any of us who would say that was, a skill thing. But same thing. By week 9, McColl's at 300 snaps. It takes Tyreek to week 13 to get to 300 snaps. And then it takes Tyreek to the end of the season to get to 400 snaps, while McColl is there by week 13. So, and Maclin and Jackson, and it's been a while for those guys, but it's Anyway, so the whole point is Sky Moore, at least through the first 3 games, has been following very closely. Has been following the Tyreek Hill snap count. So we'll have to keep an eye on that here in the next 2 or 3 weeks or so to see if we see a similar jump like we did with Tyreek. And so I'm going to show some patience with that. Obviously, I think a lot of us agree that when the offense seems to be stalling, we should see, there should be a Sky Moore package, and we should see the Sky Moore package, right? Even if that Sky Moore package is like 21 personnel with Sky Moore and Isaiah Pacheco in the backfield or something, Sky Moore and CEH, or Sky Moore and, if we really want to make life harder, why not Sky Moore and McCole Hardman in the backfield? And if we want to take Gooch's advice and give Travis a break here, you could do 21 personnel, and you could have Sky and you could have McCole in your backfield, and your tight end could be Jody Fortson. Have a little fun.
I looked at that chart and I was trying to decipher it. And I was like, well, Macklin has always had the hands. And Deshaun, I mean, as far as people taking the top off the defense, back then it was Moss and Deshaun, probably end of list. As far as just once they got by, before Tyreek, once they got by you, I mean, it was over. And then I was looking at it, I was like, why are we following the same? Because, right, McColl's snaps went up because Tyreek was hurt after the first game for 4 weeks. You know what I'm saying? So he had to be in there. And then once he was in there and they saw the speed, then it became, well, he can be a decoy for Tyreek. The problem is McCole still has issues running routes. But then I was like, why are we following the same path as Tyreek with Sky when Sky's not Tyreek? You know what I'm saying? But then little things that I have been hearing all kind of add up. Andy Reid's an old school coach. He doesn't even talk to rookies until you earn it. You know what I'm saying? Doesn't even talk to you. So it's like, not as a disrespectful thing, but like, if you want Andy's attention, you want his coaching, you have to earn it. Otherwise, you've got wide receiver coaches. You know what I'm saying? That's what they're there for. And maybe it's more or less that there has been flashes in practice. Like we saw flashes when they were putting out just the little snippets from training camp. Maybe he doesn't have it all together. And that's why, maybe not, maybe he understands the playbook, but hasn't put it all together to where the game has slowed down for him, which is why they're hell-bent on keeping him back there returning kicks, maybe to get used to the speed of the game, because it's a whole lot different than the MAC or wherever. I think the MAC was where he played. But I'm with you in the sense that Sky Moore's not a kick returner. He's never done it. And for us to have him do it at the highest level, I think, is a detriment to his actual talent, which is route running. You know what I'm saying? If you get him out there, like you said, get him a package, like you did Tyreek. Once in the backfield, bubble screens, stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, get him in the game, because if you want me to be honest, the way Hardman's looking, we all expect breakout from Hardman. This might be Hardman's last year because he still looks like Hardman. Mm-hmm. I mean, we complained about, Mr. Backwards Runner. What's his name? I forgot.
Robinson.
Right. We complained about him, but nobody is picking up on the fact that McCole is still struggling to run the route tree or the routes designed by the offense to the point to where one of the newest members of the wide receiver core, Juju, who hasn't been in the offense, 2 seconds, is trying to figure out what McColl's doing on that last route of the game. You know what I'm saying? I mean, like, he's like, no, you're supposed to do this. Why is Juju telling McColl, who's been in this offense 5 years, what he's supposed to be running?
I want to stop just a second here because I think you bring up a point that I never thought of before, and maybe a lot of us as Chiefs fans have never thought of before, right? Because, you know, we can see the tape and we'll see plays where McColl is open. What if McColl is open and Pat has no trust that McColl's going to go, you know, where he expects him to go? And so he doesn't want to throw that ball because he doesn't want to be, you know, left hanging by who knows what the hell McColl's going to do.
Yeah,
maybe that doesn't make sense. I don't know.
No, that completely makes sense, because the one thing that everybody from his father to his godfather to Andy to Kingsbury to John Gruden, all of them have said the same thing about Mahomes: student of the game, photographic memory. So when he's audibling at the line or whatever, he knows what you're supposed to run and where you're supposed to be. Tyreek was allowed to freestyle a lot more because you're not going to find 4-2 guys anywhere. And so even if he made a mistake, he had the speed to correct himself. Travis is always where he needs to be, because even when the play breaks down, because you got to believe that these coaches, even Andy, okay, if the play doesn't work here, look in this area to kind of settle down and see if we can find something. Like, we give Kelsey all that credit, and to being a former quarterback, he probably deserves a lot of it. But the one thing that most of these coaches that are successful, McVay, Reed, you know what I'm saying, even Shanahan, is they have a backup for the backup. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is the main route. If that doesn't work and Pat goes this way, look around this area to try and settle down and give us a target. Or if it breaks down this way, look for this or throw this block because we're going to shoot here. You know what I'm saying? I mean, so if Pat drops back and he's got, you know, 3 wide, 2 backs, and the 2 receivers outside of McColl are doing what they're supposed to do, but McColl is freestyling, I would be gun-shy to let go of the ball towards McColl too, because what if McColl pulls up? What if he takes an out route from there instead of going straight up like I want him to? Because he's not bothering to put in the time with us to get tendencies down and stuff so I can actually get him looks. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's just, that has to be the only explanation, is that he's still not running what the playbook says, because there's no reason out of all the receivers that Andy Reid has coached, all of them, McColl is the only one who has yet to break 1,000 yards or look like what they drafted him for. Every other person has. Hell, Deshaun was just a one-trick pony until he got with Andy, and then he was running routes. You know, Macklin always ran routes, but he became more productive. Tyreek was just strictly a kick returner until he got to Andy. Something's wrong. And I think this is, I honestly think it's his last year. He's cheap. He's not going to get that money. And I think Sky is going to end up being his replacement. I think if it goes well, we re-sign Juju. MVS is already here, and Sky. Sorry, that was a little long-winded. I apologize.
Oh, I've been doing that all night, so no apology needed there. Yeah. Yeah. You know, you would think that a player who's been, this is what, year 3 in this offense? Right? This is year 3, I think.
No, this is year 4.
Is it? That was year 3. He was a second-round pick, right? So it should only be. Anyway,
this is his last year.
Yeah, it's his last year. Either way, you would think that knowing if he knew his routes and, he was good, as good as he should be at route running by now, with his speed, like you said, he should be, he should be there.
Yeah, we should be talking about McCole like, man, we don't really miss Tyreek. That's the conversation we should be having, because you've had 2-3 years with Tyreek. You had years to pick people's brains, and you still got Kelsey. Like, you should be the breakout star. There should be nobody saying Juju's going to be the number one receiver. There's no way that should be, because above all else, you should have the most rapport with Patrick, and he's not even looking your way. So you're either not doing what you're supposed to, or he still doesn't trust you. And it could be a bit of both. And the one thing about those fanatical quarterbacks, and he can be the best quarterback you've ever seen. I agree with that. Patrick Mahomes is one of a kind. But the one thing the great ones, Herbert, Brady, Mahomes, Josh Allen, Kyler, like, they have that guy. You know what I'm saying? But they still trust everyone like there's two of them. Like, you don't hear about, you know about Diggs, but, there's always somebody else who makes Diggs' job a whole lot easier. You know what I'm saying? Kyler has AJ Green when he's healthy. Herbert has Mike Williams also with Keenan Allen. Is it Keenan Allen?
Yeah.
So it's just like I think the offense is struggling because there is no number two. I didn't like the Scantling signing, but I figured if anybody could bring it out of him, it would be Mahomes. But they're like, oh, he dropped 0 passes last year with Aaron Rodgers. Well, yeah, because Devontae caught 135 of them. And was probably targeted 150 times. You know what I'm saying? So, it's I've also watched Scantling drop easy bombs, easy catches over the middle. He had 1 year where he didn't drop any. Broken clock's right twice a day. That's just my opinion. I think Juju stays. I think McCole is gone. I think Sky starts showing improvement right around the time McDuffie gets back. God, can you imagine this defense when McDuffie gets back? And Dana?
Right. Yeah, we add back McDuffie, Willie Gay, and Mike Dana, who was having a great start to his season before he got injured. You have those three guys back, and we've talked about it. This defense is legit. Especially, I think we already said it the last time we went live. They're light years ahead of where we thought they were going to be this early. Right. I know I said the offense has got to carry the defense until we get to the bye week. And then, Spags will tighten things up, and, then you'll see the D play good. But they're already playing better than I thought they would, coming out of that bye week. So, they're, in my mind, they're raising the expectations. So, but, yeah, I don't know. I wasn't meaning to harp on McCole, but, I think you got to wonder, and it wasn't just McCole. There were other guys, last year anyway. Some of that, of course, is when you get flushed out of the pocket, things change. And when you get to that point, it's no longer about necessarily, continuing on your progressions. It is you're getting into your scramble drill. And then it's a separate question of, which guys do you have that connection with, and who do you trust, and who's the best at it when you get to those moments. And so that's, it's a completely different topic there, even though it seemed like in both cases, whichever situation it was in, that Travis and Tyreek were the best ones, before the season. So, but yeah. Anyway, um, yeah, I don't know, Gooch. Do you have anything else you want to add here? Not really any more questions I'm seeing here, or topics for us to hit. I mean, there's plenty of things that went on in the NFL that we can talk about if we really want to, but I'm going to leave it up to you because it's 3 a.m. where you're at. So, and we'll see if he's back. There he is.
Let's definitely hit the NFL.
You want to hit some of the NFL stuff that's been going on?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. You want to you want to talk about the Tua thing? You want to talk about the Eagles being 3-0? You want to talk about Antonio Brown's pool escapades? What do you want to talk about?
Let's hit it all, bro.
Well, I don't know how much of the Antonio Brown thing you can blame on CTE, man, but yeah, that was something. I don't know what I would do if I was in a pool, if my wife and I were in a pool and Antonio Brown was there, but I think probably the places he goes swimming are probably way outside of my budget, so
no stuff, mine too.
So
yeah, so Tua found a loophole. That's how he got back in the game.
what do you mean by loophole here?
Well, like, there's obviously certain protocols when you anticipate or suspect that a player has had a concussion.
Right.
And one of the things that I read was there was a loophole in it, in the agreement, basically. So instead of blaming the team, well, they blamed the doctor, basically. But the player found a way out of it. Like everybody that's watched it, doctors that are not affiliated with the NFL, doctors that I know, and we've talked about it, have all said, like, there's certain things written into the NFL players' contract about concussions that, even though we're supposed to err on the side of safety, if a player shows certain kind of passing guidelines, then it's okay to let them back on the field, as opposed to initially when they were worried about concussions. If you got hit like that or hit your head, you were done. So there's stuff written in. Of course, the NFL PA doesn't want to tell you that. They're going to automatically say, well, the doctor screwed up.
Right.
And Tua knew how to work it so he'd get back on the field. One of the first things they do when they're looking at a possible concussion is they look you in the eyes, because anybody that suffers a bad enough hit to the head, there's always that look of you're not there, or at least not all the way there. And so while his teammates were helping him back, I'm sure they were all talking to him, trying to snap him out of it, this, that, and the other. And maybe he even told them it was his back. And based on some of the symptoms, a back could make you wobble like that, especially if you were in extreme pain, could make you stumble. I don't know if anybody's really had a lot of back pain, but I have. And there's sometimes where even just taking 2 steps, I've gone down to a knee and just been like, oh, Jesus, saying, and wait for it to pass and get back up. And so I think a lot of his symptoms, Tua managed to, because none of the team, they have an independent NFLPA approved neurologist who looks at him, not affiliated with any team. And the NFLPA got to pick him, and I'm sure he pushed all of his symptoms off to his back injury and not hitting his head, which you could clearly see he did on film. And they put him back out there. And yeah, you can recover fast from a concussion. The problem with concussions is that the second one is so much easier than the first.
Right.
And if you don't believe that, ask Austin Collie, who lost a career, who was a great receiver, but had 7 concussions in 2 years. And some of them he was barely even touched. I think I never want anybody hurt seriously playing a game or a sport, especially one that I can't play, but I love dearly. You never want to see people get hurt. That automatically sucks. And what I'm going to say is going to sound evil, but it's not my intention. I hate to just see him like that, but it needed to happen because he wasn't going to take himself out. And they can say he was evaluated for a concussion every day, and you can evaluate for a concussion every day. Mahomes had a concussion. According to team doctors, he was ready to go by Tuesday because he was already passing through all the protocols and stuff that they have set in place. But he wasn't going to take himself out, and sometimes a coach in a desperate need to keep his job and a player who already knows this is his only year to prove that he belongs isn't going to do right by himself, and they should have just sat him. You already probably won your Super Bowl last week, and your quarterback suffered a head injury, allegedly, and now you're playing another team on a short week. There's no time to heal. Should have kept him out, took that L. Everybody already assumed you're going to lose because you beat the Bills and then had to go to Cincinnati in a short week. So it wasn't going to surprise anybody if you lost. It wasn't going to make you any worse in the division. You're still going to be in first place. So I hate that it happened, but I'm kind of glad that it happened for his overall safety. We don't need another Junior Seau who didn't know about concussions, and it eventually ate away at his brain and made his life untenable, especially at a young age.
Right. And we're talking about head injuries here, but we have another at least one other quarterback injury in the NFL that isn't much different in the aspects of the player and the team not doing the right thing, and that's Justin Herbert with his ribs. Like, this could be a lingering thing, and it could stop him from having a long career, if something were to happen. And I said it at the time, but I thought it was really stupid of Brendan Staley. And you have to put some of it on Justin Herbert as well. But I thought it was really stupid. Like, they were putting him back in that Chiefs game, for what? It's week 2. It's week 2 of 17 games that you have to play. What are you why are you treating this like it's a Super Bowl? It's the first matchup you have against the Chiefs. It's the second of 17 games in the regular season. Why are you bringing him back out here? It doesn't make sense. And because it's not a head injury, we don't talk about it the same, but the potential.
This is where I'm going to say it makes perfect sense, and then it makes no sense. And you're going to be like, Gucci can't be both. You're being a hypocrite right now. And I'm going to follow that with your right, but follow me on this real quick, and then you're going to understand my logic, okay? And I say that when I say this in a mad world, only the mad people are sane. So I want you to think about that. All right. So he hurt his ribs. As the head coach, it is the head coach's job to protect the player from himself. Justin Herbert's going to try and prove how tough he is to his team, that he's going to want to stick it out and be out there in the game. Now, as his head coach, you should have seen how he was behaving and yanked him out of the game. Okay, so fault lies with both of them. But secondly, if you think about it, if I'm Justin Herbert, I don't want the San Diego Chargers medical team anywhere near my ribs because I got the job because you punctured Tyrod Taylor's lungs when he took a rib shot just a couple years ago. Again, like I said, hypocritical and mad, but follow my logic. And that's if in the back of my mind, if I'm a quarterback and I got hit in the ribs and I know the Spanos family does not spend money on team physicians like they should. Now, there's no way you're coming near my ribs after what happened to Tyrod. Now, he may not have been thinking that, but I guarantee you subconsciously that's in his head.
Right.
Okay, I'm done being crazy. Go ahead.
No, I don't think it's crazy. And I understand that, when you get these alphas out here and there's an easy example of this, and not to dog on him because I know he's your boy, but Alex Smith coming back after that nasty leg injury, like the odds of something seriously much worse happening with him coming out was so much greater, right? He was putting his life in jeopardy, afterwards to try to come back. And, I understand that there's stuff that goes with that, but at the same time, you have to in some way protect yourself or have somebody in your life who's willing to protect you from yourself.
So with that, I'm going to agree wholeheartedly, and I'm going to say this in defense of Alex. Yes, probably was stupid to come back after you've already, they paid you all your money. So you got the 80 or 90 mil. But you almost lost your life with that leg. But there's part of me as a man, I understand why he did it, because for 2 years, his wife had to do everything, push him in a wheelchair, take care of the kids, go grocery shopping. He's stuck at home or rehabbing. So he wasn't able to be a father, a husband, anything. And as a man, maybe when he got to throwing again, he just wanted to be able to prove to himself that he could do it. But at that point is when I would have been like, okay, one game. You know what I'm saying? Maybe not even a game. Let me take a series just to prove that I could do it and then take me out. You're right. He put himself at a serious risk. What if that when he was carrying Aaron Donald on his back that one time afterwards, that leg gave away again or snapped? You know what I'm saying? Like, I was fearful for him when he was taking those hits. I was happy he tried to come back, but even I was like, Alex. Right. Trust me with your mind, there are plenty of teams who would love to have you doing something for them. You know what I'm saying? But I understand it in that essence. Like, you feel like when you're young, and Alex isn't like Alex is our age, but I mean, like we're young, but when you're young and you can do everything and then one day you can't do nothing, you almost feel like you have to validate yourself as a man by going back and doing something to prove that you can still be productive member of society or whatever you're doing, of your family or whatever. So I kind of understand it, but yes, it was a stupid decision. Sorry.
Oh yeah, I mean, I fully understand. From each player's perspective. I think at the end of the day, we're looking at all this as Chiefs fans, and I think this is one area where we can breathe a sigh of relief that Andy is much wiser than these other coaches have been, because it's not easy to tell your $500 million quarterback, $500 million quarterback that he's done for the game. And Andy's did it now multiple times. He has protected Pat from himself. That's part of who you are as a coach. You have to understand what motivates your quarterback. And you also have to have that, that perspective. It's hard though. I can't imagine being Mike McDaniels. It's your first year as a coach. You're trying to build rapport with your quarterback. So there's an extent to where, you want to defer to him and show him that he has all your trust. And I don't know Mike's mindset. I just know what I've heard of him, from his time in San Francisco and up to now. And he seems to be, in my estimation, what I've heard from him previously, he seems to be a very logical, well thought out person. And also, he's from a younger generation than us, and I think some of that shows up with some sensitivity to things that even we don't necessarily have. So when he talks about his mindset with Tua, I'm more inclined to believe him. He's trusting Tua. He's trusting what the doctors say. I don't think, and we can question whether he should have known better or not. But I don't think that he himself, I don't know. It's hard because you see these hits and, you want to say, well, be safe with it. Even if Tua tells you he's fine, even if this independent neurologist tells you he's fine, be safe with it. But, there's all these dynamics with it. Okay, so now Tua all of a sudden feels betrayed, right? And he has his own reasons, as we've talked about. He has his own reasons for, if he was being deceptive, all these things. He's got pressure from the owner. He's got pressure from the NFL. He's got his own job. He's got pressure from 52 other men that he's leading. And so I wouldn't want to be in his position as a first-time head coach. You're 3-0. You're playing last year's AFC, Super Bowl representative. This is a big game. This is a big game as a test for your team. Tua tells you he's fine. The independent neurologist tells you he's fine. The team doctor tells you he's fine. Like, it's super easy for every single person in hindsight, to say so. I think for me, the biggest surprise though was how quickly he was released from the hospital, and then he flew home, with the team after all of this happening. So, but yeah, I think teams need to be more cautious with some of these things. Whether it's coaches being mindful of the pressure, put on players, team owners or GMs being more mindful of the pressure being put on coaches. It seems like there were a lot of areas where things could have went better here. It's kind of like going back to the Chiefs and Colts game, but it seems like there's a lot of ways that things can be improved going forward for players with potential neurological injuries.
Nice. So Let's move on. Let's talk about the Eagles being the best team in football.
Well, I'm not as surprised at their quick start as probably a lot of other people are. But part of that again goes back to last year when I won the RGR fantasy football league. Jalen Hurts was my quarterback, and Gooch, I know, you're an Alabama fan, so you know way more about Hurts than I do. I just know that he was a significant factor in carrying my fantasy football team, to victory. I didn't expect him to take this big of a leap this year, but I was looking to draft him again for my team this year, before somebody else took him. So, I had at least that much faith in him that he was going to be my quarterback pick again, this year. The Eagles had a fairly decent team last year, and they made improvements on that team. So I'm not completely caught off guard here. I will say that if you look at the head coach quarterback combo, which is what I usually say, right? Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts isn't in my top 5 probably of head coach quarterback combos. And that's more so, due to Sirianni. But I mean, I don't know how we even feeling about the NFC East, as a whole.
Well, first of all, as an Alabama guy, I want to say that the reason why Jalen was benched for Tua is because Tua was more accurate with the short passes. Saban is still an old school coach. He's won a lot of championships, but he doesn't. And right now I call Alabama wide receiver U because he's actually starting to get wide receivers. But in essence, he's Belichick in college. He gets the only difference is he gets these receivers because they go. Alabama is Alabama. There are certain colleges that wherever you go, if you produce, you're gonna go Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan. The big guys, LSU. Auburn. You know, and that's why he started getting receivers now. But in essence, Jalen Hurts was benched because his accuracy isn't like Tua's across the middle, and Jalen has more arm for big plays. And Saban still hasn't really grasped that. If you look at all the big plays that Alabama has, majority of them come from the running back position. And any done by the wide receiver is on a route that probably should get them 20 to 30, but because the receivers have talent, go to the house. So it doesn't surprise me that Jalen's been doing well. If anybody watched, and I still followed him when he went to Oklahoma. Not that I liked Oklahoma because I think Oklahoma sucks. I'm sorry, any OU fans out there that may be watching this, but I watched Jalen just to see. And he's got everything. He's got a fairly decent arm. He's never going to be the most accurate guy out there. But the one thing that you can do is if you give him a running game, which he had at Alabama, he will produce because he's good at play action. So for me, it's not a surprise that he's doing well. I actually like the fact that the Phillies are showing people like the Ravens that you can have a running game and still win because the Eagles are leading the NFL in rushing again. I think it's interesting. I think it's good for football.
Yeah.
Oh, and shout out to Cooper Rush for being, well, I guess he took a loss this last time, didn't he? To the Giants, the Giants are through. No, he beat the Giants, so Cooper Rush is undefeated. Yeah. Shout out to Dak's backup.
Yeah, he's played pretty good, but if I recall correctly, the end of that game, the Cowboys were bailed out a few times there that really prevented the Giants from coming back in that one. But I was actually more impressed, and nothing against, Cooper Rush there. I was way more impressed though with Daniel Jones because of what Dallas's defense was throwing at him, and you know how difficult he had life back there behind his offensive line with what Dallas was doing, and then his receivers not catching passes. But man, I thought at least what I saw of that game there towards the end, I was impressed with to me, it looked like how much he's grown since last season. I don't know if that's the Dable effect or what.
Probably is, but I'm still not a Daniel Jones fan.
Oh, I'm not saying I'm a fan. I just last year what I saw, I thought for sure he would be done, and I didn't necessarily think that when they hired Dable. I thought Dable would help him out, but I guess this is the first Giants game I think I've seen or caught any part of, and so I thought he looked pretty good under pressure there.
I will put this out there. I'm quick to say that I was the first to say something, and generally in most cases I am, but Keys was the only one who said that Dayball would probably help out Daniel Jones. Just look how good he did with Josh Allen. Like, Keys was the only one saying that. Like, so shout out to Keys for getting that one, because Dayball has made, even though he still has his Daniel Jones moments, he looks more like a competent quarterback now than he did the first couple of seasons. That's for sure.
All right. Unlike Josh McDaniels, who apparently, with his stint with the Broncos, was obnoxiously saying that he could turn anybody into an all-pro quarterback. I don't know if you caught that thread. I don't even remember the former Broncos player now who was sharing his Josh McDaniels horror stories. So, but yeah, it was kind of some ugly stuff. But McDaniels has had 6, 8, 10 years since that stint to hopefully grow as a person and a coach, and really, recognize what he did wrong his first stint and improve it. So, just because the Raiders are 0-3 right now doesn't mean, that they're going to continue that trajectory. Doesn't mean they're going to make the playoffs, but they could start to put it together at some point.
I also think that I'm not a Raiders fan. I'm not a Raiders apologist. I'm not a Raiders anything. But I will say this. For the people calling for Josh McDaniels' head, it is not him telling Derek Carr to force the ball to Devontae Adams and cost you guys the game. It is not him that told Hunter Renfrow, when you had the ball and you're driving for the winning field goal at Arizona, to try and get extra yards and be a hero. All he had to do was catch the ball and go down. 2 times in a row, he tried to do too much, and it cost you guys. You know what I'm saying? So it's not, you can't put that on McDaniel's head. You gotta hold these players responsible too. That's all I'm saying.
All right. Yeah, and that's an interesting one, and maybe the forcing of the ball to Devontae could have been foreshadowed, by one, looking at what we now assume based on his podcast was what was happening with Tyreek and Pat, but also, that little extra pressure of Devontae and Derek being college, being a college combo there. So, some extra pressure of being his friend, if you want to say it that way, and trying to force him the ball. Could have been, and I don't know what McDaniels is dialing up on those plays. I haven't really looked at the Raiders at all this season, and why would I want to? I have enough kids and I get to change enough diapers. So if I want to look at that, I can just change a diaper. But that could certainly be part of it. There would be some pressure on there. That's the guy that you were throwing to in college. That's the guy who wanted to come play with you. you're going to feel like you owe them a little bit. You got arguably the best receiver in the NFL. You want to have fun with it. So, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see what adjustments they make because man, I tell you what, I thought for certain, like you take Devontae, at least on paper, right? Devontae, and you take Renfro and Darren Waller, and you put those three together, that's not necessarily on paper. That's not an easy trio to combat. Now, how much of this is the Mahomes effect where, again, defenses are doing things to try to have to stop Mahomes, and the things that they come up with, to have to stop Mahomes, the average quarterback, is basically screwed. And so, you get Derek Carr and he's a fringe, above average quarterback, whichever, side of above average you want to throw him. And, the margin of error gets smaller and smaller for these quarterbacks, the less elite they are. Because even for the elite ones, the margin of error has gotten smaller, and the way that they played, is being dictated to them a little bit more than what they're used to. Whereas, as a tweet I saw the other day said something like, these young quarterbacks now are getting a taste of what the quarterbacks who played in the early 2000s went through, kind of the defensive stuff that they had to go through, where you can't just try to take the bomb shot every single play. So, you get a quarterback like Derek Carr, does that hurt him, much worse because teams are playing to take away Mahomes, to take away Rodgers, to take away Josh Allen, Tom Brady, these quarterbacks who are better quarterbacks. Well, Gooch, any other NFL topic you want to hit here? Or you just want to hit that pillow and go to sleep?
Well, let's see. Oh, I got one final thing. If Tua is out for a while, I bet Tyreek starts complaining. That's all I got. It needed to be said.
I don't know. I think it could be interesting if the whole world saw that maybe Tua's backup is more accurate. I'm not saying that's the case. I think it would be kind of funny, though, if we saw the production go up even more. It's kind of like last year when Lamar was out. I think it was what's his name, Huntley or whatever, filled in for him, and the offense was actually more efficient. Just slightly, but it was a little bit more efficient from some of the analytics I saw there. So, you kind of take that with a grain of salt, but maybe that's one of those factors of why the Ravens weren't willing to budge on Lamar's contract. So, yeah, I don't know. It could be interesting if we see that, though. We talked, preseason or off season, after the Tyreek trade, we talked about, the receivers that the Dolphins had and their ability to get separation really quickly. So, it'll be interesting to see, because I do think that Mike McDaniels is a coach who he seems to have a good understanding on offense, and I think he'll be able to plan around not having Tua, and they might actually see a little bit more efficiency, but who knows? And part of that could be Gooch, because Tua's left-handed, and Teron Armstead is their left tackle. So instead of Tua's blind side being guarded by, and I don't know who their right tackle is, but it's not Teron Armstead, he's their left tackle. Tyrod's blind side is going to be, or Teddy, right? Teddy Bridgewater's or their backup.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so Teddy's blind side will be guarded by Teron Armstead. So, maybe that makes a difference. I don't know. But I would still imagine that their offense is still gonna look fairly lethal. And you kind of wonder in this matchup, who would have won if you have a healthy Tua and Miami's cornerbacks are healthy. So I was looking forward to this matchup. A little bummed on that, but we definitely want to see Tua take some time off and get the rest and the care that he needs for sure. And I'm going to go ahead and say it. I want to see the same for Justin Herbert. That's not 100%. Simply because I want the Chargers to lose every game. I mean, there's seriously a part where what you don't want to see a young player's career put in jeopardy, and for what? And I understand what Gooch was saying about, the image you want to portray to your teammates. But as a head coach was kind of what I was getting at. You're Brendan Staley and you're playing this game like it's week 18 and it's a win or go home game. And the playoffs all, hinge on winning this game. But it's only week 2. And you're the away team. Yeah, it looks like a winnable game, but is it worth putting your quarterback out there for and risking him getting injured worse? So anyway, I'm going to leave it at that. Gooch, if you have any more to say, you can say that. Otherwise, you can pay the bills and send us home here.
Hey guys, we appreciate you guys. Sorry I was late. We appreciate you guys being here, just chatting with us tonight. Obviously, tune in tomorrow because we're going to have an after game little chat, even if it's just me and Keys again. Go back, look at all our other videos. We're going to put out another huddle, guys. I had just been kind of busy and going to school and stuff like that, so we hadn't had a chance to, but we're going to. But we're also going to do our live right here on the BAK channel. Make sure you tell somebody you love them. I appreciate you being here, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Right after we answer this one, Robert snuck this in on us, Gooch, and he said, what do you say for the final score here? What's your prediction? Final score prediction.
Ooh.
Robert has Chiefs 27-24.
Well, you want my personal opinion, the league average is about 25, 26 points a game. I think if we win this game, which I was going to bet on the Chiefs if I were going to bet, if we're going to win this game, it's going to prove to the offense that we can get things done offensively. But honestly, I think it's going to be a tighter game than most people think. So I'm looking at 21-17.
Yeah, and let's see, the score of the Colts game was 20-17.
Yep.
I mean, I guess, yeah, clearly the Buccaneers defense is I would say light years ahead of the Colts defense. I mean, I guess if there is one advantage, it's that Gus Bradley was playing the Chiefs twice a year. And so he learned what didn't work. And maybe, just maybe, Gooch, I don't know what you think, but given what we saw with the Raiders compared to what we saw out of the Colts defense, just maybe part of that was John Gruden saying, hey, I know Andy Reid, this is what I want you to do. But man, 20-17 in that game, we could have easily had at least another 14 points, if not even, another 21 or 24 points. Not being a homer here, I think realistically, with the dropped Kels in the end zone and then the pass interference that didn't get called, that would have gave us an extra 3 or 4 points, and just having Harrison Butker, which we're not going to have in this game, But maybe Matthew Wright makes a bigger difference than what Amendola was making. So I guess if you say, realistically, maybe we scored, say, 34 points against the Colts defense, or should have, maybe 21 points makes sense. That would put us at 3 touchdowns, and I don't know that we're scoring 3 touchdowns and only touchdowns. Man, I'm gonna say 16. Can I do this? I think I'm gonna say like 16 to 13. 16 to 13 Chiefs. Because I don't know what the Bucks defense hasn't given up very many points the first 3 games total, and our offensive line hasn't looked good. The play calling hasn't gotten in rhythm. So unless they're really focused, unless Andy Heck has been working like heck with the offensive line, and unless Andy and Eric and Matt really come out focused in their game planning this week, I think it's gonna be a lot harder given the Bucks defense. But at the same time, I believe in our defense, because I think that the Bucks don't have a Jonathan Taylor type of player. Fournette is Fournette, and that I'm not taking away from him. He's shown he can be a good running back, but he's not Jonathan Taylor. They have those offensive line injuries, and Matt Ryan isn't nearly as smart as Tom Brady. But Gooch, one of the things I said earlier is I was surprised to actually see Matt Ryan take off a little bit. We're not going to see Tom Brady take off. If we get to him,
No.
we get to him. So
that's the reason why I said it's going to be a little bit tighter, because our defense is really good. It's gotten really pretty decent at stopping the run. I think we're going to do one of the things that seems like we've never been able to really sack Brady. I think I was going to go somewhere else with that, and I completely forgot. But I just go ahead. I'll remember. Oh. Although I'm
can't hear you, Gooch.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Although I'm not his biggest fan, I did not know that Orlando was playing with a knee injury in that Colts game. Obviously, he's not going to. It still doesn't make a difference because he still had issues with Ngakoue, but it turns out he had been limited earlier that week. It just wasn't on the reports, and he was dealing with a knee thing. So that could have made it even worse, because as big of a man as he is, at 6'7", 300-something pounds,
right?
If something's not right, you can't do your job. Now, obviously, again, he has problems with speed rushers, and that's all he's going to see for a while. So it doesn't make me feel any better. I mean, it doesn't make me change my opinion of him, but it makes me feel a little bit better about maybe he can slow him down a step or two if Mahomes can get the ball out faster. I still don't think he's going to be worth $25 million, unless he goes on a 14-game, no pressure, no sacks allowed.
Yeah, we're talking all pro level stuff here.
Right. Unless he turns into Trent Williams for the next 14 games, I don't think he's a Chief next year unless he decides to take. Here's the funny thing. I wonder if he sits at home and he thinks, with the way I've been playing, I should have took that contract.
I keep waiting for him to fire his agent.
But, because anyway, he's going to get about the same offer if he plays the same. And after what they've seen, here's the thing, like, people want to tear the Chiefs down, but the one thing everybody wants to be is the Chiefs. And the same reason why DeMarcus got cut from the Raiders shortly after he joined them and stuff like that is because, like Belichick, if you can't hack it with them, if you can't hack it in an offensive system that Andy Reid tailor-made to his specific personnel, how are you going to hack it anywhere else? Like, you blocked for Lamar, and when you go back and you look at it, blocking for Lamar has to be way harder than blocking for Mahomes. And I say that because when you have Lamar's always moving and running, Mahomes is dropping back, and he's not doing that anymore. He's stepping up in the pocket, but Mahomes doesn't take off nearly as hard as Lamar or as often. So you went from blocking for Lamar where you can't even be downfield until he gets downfield. How are you doing it? Yet you can't block for Mahomes.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, I'm expecting, like you said, I'm expecting a defensive battle. So that's why I said 16-13. I think each team gets a touchdown, and then it's a battle of field goals. So I have a lot of confidence in Matthew Wright, I think his name is. Did I get that right?
Well, that's because he's kicked for a pro team before, even if it was the Jaguars before they became the Jaguars of this year.
Right. Go ahead.
I was just going to say he kicked for a pro team, so he knows what it's like.
Yeah, and I read a little bit earlier, about him. He kicked 2 fourth quarter field goals for the Jags against the Dolphins, and including the game winner, which was a 53-yarder, in the fourth quarter to make them break their 20-game losing streak. So, that's a good deal of pressure. So, to me, that and alone is impressive. And of course, with the game winner being a 53-yarder, that too, it gives you some confidence in him. So, of course, the alternative question is, well, then why was he on the street? So, obviously there's something there, but yeah, so, that's what I have it. I think it's going to be a defensive battle. The only thing that makes me paranoid, right, is a lot of times when you think it's going to be like a defensive battle and it ends up, a shootout, or vice versa. You think it's going to be a shootout and it ends up being a defensive battle. So I don't know. I could be completely wrong on this one, but that's just the way I see it.
I don't think that kid's on the street because in most cases, the good teams already have some of the best kickers in the league, and the bad teams are trying to get people on cheap deals so they can build and hopefully play for win now. I mean, but from my understanding, that kid didn't miss a kick in Jacksonville. I just think they decided to go cheaper.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Colts cut their kicker after week 1, Rodrigo Blankenship or whatever. But yeah, I think, man, I had it. I don't know where it's at now, but I want to say his, even though it's a very small sample size, I want to say his career field goal percentage is in the 80% rate, in the 80s. I could be wrong on that one. I'm doing that one off of memory here, but I think that's what it is. So, but anyway, yeah, I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be a defensive battle here, and I'm hoping this is a game where, and we've been doing good on sacks. I think 5th in the league in sacks, I think was the stat I saw. I could be wrong on that, but yeah. Anyway, so
One more thing. Last week, no, wasn't last week. Me, Keys, and Aaron, we text a lot. And tongue in cheek, I said, after that Amendola kid, I said they're gonna have Harrison out there in an air cast kicking footballs, and he was kicking footballs this past week. Like finally, we're just like, okay, you can't go, but he was out there trying because that Amendola kid was that bad.
Yeah,
You should stick to watching the Bag Talk Bros. We generally know what we're talking about, guys.
I feel bad for the kid because you are auditioning and you're auditioning on the biggest stage. So, but Wright's field goal percentage in the NFL, it's only been 28 attempts, but 89.3%. So, and his longest NFL field goal is 56 yards. So, there's a little bit there. Again, I don't know if we had some Jags fans in the chat, maybe they could feed us what the story was. But it's just weird though because he took Josh Lambo's spot, and Josh Lambo had like a 91.4% career field goal percentage or something like that. And so he took over last year, and then this May they waived him. So I don't know. Maybe the kid they got is better. We had a similar situation ourselves, right? When we had Butker, who was the guy before him? Was it Cairo Santos?
Oh yeah.
We've had a few decent kickers who are still in the league with other teams right now. And it didn't necessarily look like we needed to replace him.
No, I like Santos.
And when, we signed Butker from the Panthers practice squad, there was a good deal of us who were like, who and why, and so, I mean, you get some of that. So anyway, it is what it is. We had our one false ending here as Robert snuck in his question. Robert had it 27-24 Chiefs. Gooch had it 21-17 Chiefs. And I have it 16-13 Chiefs. I think it's a defensive battle. So those are our predictions. And I usually don't do scores for games because, I mean, anything can happen. It just, things get crazy. So anyway, Gooch already paid the bills. So we appreciate you guys for watching this episode of the Back Talk Bros.
If you're here and you're still watching, first thing in the morning, because we haven't had a chance to, I'm going to do a pick for every game before it kicks off tomorrow. Right here, we're going to do it. I'm just going to record it. It's not going to be live. I'm going to record it. We're going to put it out. We're going to start putting out more products. We've just all been busy, but I think we're finally starting to get schedules down so we can come together. But be looking for the picks tomorrow, how I feel about it anyway. And, just more stuff coming your way, guys.
I think that first game begins at 7:30 a.m. Eastern time, Gooch.
Yeah, it's the London game.
So, yeah. I guess you're going to film that now then, huh? Anyway. Anyway, we want to thank you guys for watching this episode of the Back Talk Bros on our Midnight Madness here on this Saturday night, early Sunday morning. And just a reminder, to hit that, to hit the like. And if you're not a subscriber yet, go ahead and subscribe and leave us a comment after we finish here. And we'll see you tomorrow night as we give a post-game reaction. So thanks for watching, guys. We appreciate it.
You got your team, and we got a kingdom. Ready for war, we score at will. We're the Super Bowl champs.